Hello and welcome to another episode of Creativity and Luxury with Dr. N. Today's episode is about fashion and architecture. Two worlds often seen as separate, yet they both shape our daily lives and express our identity in powerful ways. I'm Dr. Nameen, and today's conversation will explore the fascinating connection between these two creative realms. We're joined today by Patrick Schumacher, principal at Zaha Hadid Architects, a visionary in the world of design known for pushing the boundaries of architecture. Together, we'll delve into how fashion and architecture influence one another, shaping both the spaces we inhabit and also the way we present ourselves to the world. Hello, welcome, Patrick, and thank you for joining me again today. So we had a conversation in the past where we kind of touched upon the connection between fashion and architecture. And we're back again to talk a little bit more about the link between the two. So what are your thoughts on this?
Well, fashion and architectural design, as well as interior, product, furniture design, etc., even graphic design, they're all design disciplines. All the designers share an agenda, a discourse, even if they express their professional expertise in different parts of life. It's always about visually articulating various aspects of our phenomenal world of our life. And we are all supported by respective engineers for the technical functionality aspects. But as designers, we are in charge of the social functionality aspects, and that has a lot to do with expressing the situation and expressing identities. When you are host and inviting guests into a space, you want to bring them into a certain atmosphere and to distinguish that from other situations and atmospheres. And when you dress up or when you go to a shop to buy a new outfit, you're also thinking about self-expression and expressing yourself for particular situations. So there's the parallels. It's for me, it's all about signaling and communicating who you are and what the situation is. And that's where where these kind of disciplines converge. And we, as Hadid Architects, we have been designing in all design disciplines, all the way from urban design through architecture, interior, fashion, furniture. Well, and when it comes to fashion, that's more rare that architects get into it. We all know that architects do furniture and products, perhaps. And but Zaha was always also interesting, not only in jewelry, which is more close maybe to products, but fashion. So she designed a number of her own dresses. I've done the same with some of my suits and jackets. And then we also designed a very nice collection for Odlo. It's kind of sport dress and skiing dress, skiing brand, a Swiss brand. So yeah, we love fashion design, and now when it comes to Metaverse, we're also showing in Metrotopia, we're showing fashion designers. I'm teaching at the moment, co-teaching a course at the Central Academy of Fine Arts, the fashion department in Beijing, on Metaverse fashion.
All right. So can you tell me a bit more about this course? That's interesting. So you travel frequently to teach this course?
It's an online interfacing, and then they gave a lecture of fashion for contemporary society. And it's Yemen, and the head of the Cafe Fashion, has actually a show at Metrotopia at the moment. So and she's designing both for physical lives and for digital lives. And so we are then co-teaching this course. So we're interfacing with the students and see what comes out. But it is for the metaverse.
So apart from that, I mean, do you think the inspiration is the same for both designers, architects, and fashion?
Well, the inspirations could be manifold, but you can characterize the task as being very much similar or the same in parallel. It's the framing of communicative interaction in social situations. And you do that when you design a space where you invite various participants into an ambience, into an atmosphere, and which indicates also, of course, how you might, what's the tone and purpose of the interaction. And similarly, when you dress up, you characterize yourself in distinction of many other people, but also you dress up for a particular situation. An elegant evening out, or a sports event, or a casual gathering, or kind of a professional environment. And so there's also the articulation and communication of the situation, and so you kind of fit in, and people know how to approach you, and so this kind of communicating of social situations and of characters and of identities, that is what these disciplines all share. You can do that also with products. Some people pay a lot of attention about their car, what kind of car they purchase. And these are, of course, there's a utilitarian aspect as well, where your clothes have to kind of keep you warm in winter, etc. Similarly with architecture, but there's the larger part, or the part where the designers are really required rather than an engineer, is this expressive element, this communicative element. I also talk about the semiological element. That is what is shared. And so you also can, there's been parallels in style and in sensibility. If you want to be always at the forefront and want to express a kind of contemporaneousness, or modern sensibility, or even a future-oriented sensibility versus a more nostalgic and traditional sensibility, you can do that in design, and you can do that in architecture, you can do that in fashion design. You do that in their individual choices as somebody who's a consumer of both architecture and fashion.
I'm wondering, has there ever been an architect who turned into a fashion designer, or vice versa?
Actually, I'm not sure.
That would be quite interesting to explore.
Well, but what certainly is the case, that at the Bauhaus, you had many disciplines, and they did textile design. I don't know so much about fashion design, but the modern movement, and this kind of white modernism we know about, these kind of the early 20s, was paralleled by the reform dress movement, which is also going all white and simple and lack of ornament. And it's oftentimes been the wives of the architect who have been protagonists in this kind of white modernism with respect to fashion. And there were similar themes: hygiene, and getting rid of the riffraff of history, and being practical and sporty. And you have, and you see these were dresses where you can ride a bicycle with, etc. And that's the spirit of modernism. And these were, sometimes more these were actually the women of, and sometimes connected, or wives of architects,
So
who
we
were
can
protagonists.
we can literally say that fashion and architecture are married.
Yeah, you can say that. And
Okay.
some argue that since this reform dress movement preceded to some extent this modernist architecture, let's say at the beginning of the 20th century, and then modernist architecture came through in the early 20s, also this kind of emphasis on white, some people argue that this was inspiring modernist architecture. So the reform dress movement, modernist kind of dress came first.
So, okay, the flip side of this is, I guess, does one inspire the other? For example, can architecture or a style in architecture or architectural construct inspire fashion
Of
and
course.
vice versa as well?
Yeah, definitely. For instance, minimalism exists both in fashion and in architecture, if you like.
Mm.
And if you look at some of the Japanese 80s minimalism and the 80s kind of, if you look at some kind of architecture of a Tadao Ando from the late 70s, 80s, and you look some of the minimalist fashion of a Yoji Yamamoto, I think I see kind of connections there. Definitely there's this. And yeah, of course, also art and fashion are connected in this way. The art world is a kind of inspiration and generates material for all the design disciplines. You can see that also with modern art and modern abstract art and modern architecture. The work from Mondrian into Van Doesburg and Rietveld, but also when it came to 60s pop culture, pop art, dresses into furniture as well. The 60s were very much an opening up, of course, of breaking down typologies and going wild, if you like, on the furniture front, on the architecture front, and on the fashion front. So there are definitely connections there and direct inspirations, for sure.
Patrick, when you design your suits, what inspires you? It sounds like you look for practicality, because I remember last session you said to me you want it to look good for a dinner event, but also you might want to jog home. So it sounds like you try to combine practicality with aesthetics. Is there anything else that inspires you when you're designing this?
I mean, basically, that's the principles of tectonism also for architecture, where I'm emphasizing the aesthetic expression and the communication, but the repertoires but also one element, and there could be a lot of diversity of expression, is 21st century. I want to kind of express the contemporaneousness, and that's why I like, for instance, in architecture, it uses the latest science of engineering and structural optimization and robotic fabrication, 3D printing, and that comes through with a new kind of repertoire and a new aesthetic. And that has also to do with lightness, with optimization. So the engineering optimization is technical and practical, but it brings also a new morphology, a new aesthetic, and then that becomes a medium of expression, and it is more diverse. So I apply that to fashion. And you can see it's not only me, but so the inspiration would then come from sports clothing. And you had aspects of this. For instance, what is very cumbersome with traditional clothing, and is for men's, is ironing the shirts. Starching, ironing. The suits need to be ironed, and this doesn't interface well with traveling. Also, the other thing, the stiffness, stretchiness for ease of movement, for moving quickly and go from your job, using zippers instead of buttons, new technology or Velcro, but also material engineering of the fabric, so breathing fabrics, which is differentiated. So traditional tailoring has one type of fabric, which is too rigid in one areas, and too soft in another. It's always is equal, but what you really need is a fabric with differentiate, which is breathy in some zones, absorptive of sweat in others, porous, and then stiff in some zones and elastic in others. And that's what you get with a company like Odlo, where they have movement management, moisture management, also temperature management, cooling fabrics, building up more warmth on different parts of your body. And that's what I'm inspired by. And that expresses itself in a new kind of, using elastic fabrics, perforating in one areas and layering up and stiffening up and others. That's what, and it comes out with a nice aesthetic, I think. Similarly, if you think about sports shoes, I mean, I've not worn a kind of traditional shoe for the last 15 years. And, when Prada started also to bring in collaborations and develop shoe formats which are inspired by sports shoes. Why? Sports shoes are technically so much superior. And, you have much more shock absorptions, you have lightness, you have comfort, you can run fast. And that has been conquering the world of shoes. And that's been confined to shoes to some extent, and it should conquer all of fashion. But again, the remaining communicative is a very important part of the end game in fashion, not only technical, but the technical and practical must be an underlying kind of agenda. I'm emphasizing, of course, and always the expressive communicative aspect of all design, but that doesn't mean we exclude the technical and practical. These are technical and practical aspects which always need to be fulfilled and are also important. And they deliver morphologies which we then kind of heighten into communicative expressiveness. And that's the way we should work. So we don't have to, it's problematic if the communicative element takes over in the sense of compromising and inhibiting the practical. I mean, that maybe happened in the era of Rococo, for instance, where the wigs you were wearing were becoming incredibly heavy, and maybe your ability to move around and became kind of compromised, etc. So that's a kind of disproportionalities evolve there sometimes, but we can see that the amount of investment in the communicative aspect of fashion, you can see the importance there, the amount of our wealth and income we spend on that aspect, which is more variety and more variation and refreshment, a high refreshment rate over and above what is technically worn out, for instance. But again, the technicality and practicality is important. One of the things for me, as somebody who's been traveling so much, is that you're able to throw your suits into the suitcase and don't have to worry about ironing and folding and all of that. And who was perfect with this is Issey Miyake with his pleats. You can roll them up. And also Zaha was loving them for that reason. But you have a nice suit or dinner jacket, looks elegant and aesthetically deliberate, but it's all crumbled up already. So it will be a very kind of resilient. Its crumbled texture will never have kind of look kind of unironed. So these are important things. And I was talking about shoes, etc. Yeah, and I ventured into some of my own kind of designs because I didn't quite find the right product in the market. There are some brands where I found a lot. For instance, Prada, the Techno Stretch. I mean, they're classically beautifully tailored suits, but they're all stretchy. They look great, but and feel good, and you can run with them. But they just feel the look was a little bit too traditional for me. So I was looking around elsewhere, and then in the end I said, no, I have to do it myself.
And obviously, you have to find tailors who can actually execute that.
Oh
exactly.
yeah, of course.
That's not easy.
So yes. So I found this kind of very nice kind of New York-based, originally I think Croatian, this fashion designer tailor. So she's also a designer, but I was doing design in this case, and she did the technical tailoring and refinement. So that's the engineering part, which we always need. The tailor is the engineer, if you like. And we as designers, we obviously depend on that to make it right. But so this worked very well with this, selecting the fabric. There was an outer, my favorite fabric jacket has this kind of neoprene. We had a pattern of perforation, cuts for zippers, an inner kind of absorptive layer. And then I did another 3-part suit with vest, but the vest had the arms and the overcoat had no arms. So there's a play of which part belongs to which, and also everything zipper, everything stretchy. And that was done in London. So, and then again, Odlo is a connection we've made early on, and I'm proud of, and we did some nice product series there. And that's where I also learned about the more sophisticated levels of technical fabric design and fabric differentiation, which I think we need more of, computational knitting, things like this. And there have always been innovators like Alaya, for instance, with these fantastic continuous dresses. And these are depend on new technologies. So
Laser
new
cutting
technologies
as well.
That and the kind of computational knitting, and that's where you push forward with contemporary fashion. And fashion too many times is kind of retro and recycling. And I don't believe in retro styles, back to the 80s, back to the 70s and things like that. So I think we need to move forward and be off our time.
So is that the principles that Zaha was following as well when she was designing her clothes? Or was it slightly different?
Slightly different. She was less dogmatic, let's say. Less principled, if you like, but she had somebody with her, and she did quite a few pieces, many pieces, beautiful pieces. And she also had, major fashion designers design directly for her, like Mucha Prada was designing for her for special occasions, etc. One-off dresses.
What about if you were to employ someone to take care of your fashion design? If you diversify into that.
We should do that. I mean, we have so many things, so many other things we're kind of pushing, and this is something. I mean, what I realized, and we visited many fashion designers, and we've worked with, for instance, Neil Barrett on a lot of his outlet stores, and we visited people like, of course, Prada and Neil Barrett or Mies van Druten. We visited these studios, and you can see how they work. And the teams are not very large, but it's very intensive. To be a proper professional fashion designer, putting out 3 collections a year, that's a full-time entrepreneurial thing. And I wouldn't mind if we find somebody who thinks, well, develop us within the Zaha Hadid kind of envelope and umbrella. That would be fantastic to find. And I would have my input to build it up, from scratch. That's a tough one. So I would love to do it, but we have many other things on our plates. So if somebody's coming forward and saying, "Hey, I'm doing it for you guys. I see the synergies. Let's go. Let's run."
Yes, that's of course that would be an exciting venture for Zaha Hadid to transcend, the borders of kind of domains using their design ethics. That would be really exciting to see. Well, Patrick, I'd just like to thank you for coming on the podcast again. It sounds like you have a very busy day ahead, so thank you once again.
Oh yeah, thanks for your time and thanks for the conversation.